Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to Puck Watching STL for our Game 5 recap of the Blues playoff round one against the Winnipeg Jets, resulting in a 5-3 loss for the St. Louis Blues as to go down in the series 3-2 and Game 6 being back in St. Louis. And this was last night, and we got the game coming up tomorrow. But we wanted to briefly touch base with the audience here just to give our thoughts on the game and how we kind of feel the Blues played in it and what we see as kind of the defining factors of how they ended up going down in the series here and losing their momentum that they had going into it, as well as address a big controversy of this game, and that being the Shen hit on Mark Scheifele. But we're gonna get into that one by one. But Nick, how did we feel about just the overall Blues performance that they displayed in Game 5 in Winnipeg?
It wasn't good. They definitely came out, I would say, flat. They lacked the jump that they had at home in the previous two games. They definitely got bottled up with some penalties in the first period, which swung the momentum a bit. And I know we'll get into that a little bit later. Physical game, very, especially in that first period. Some really violent hits, no doubt. But they didn't play well enough. I think everyone can agree on that as Blues fans. But they had chances, but not enough, not nearly enough. Same story as, honestly, games 1 and 2.
Yeah. I think first topic probably would be in terms of the Blues in the ozone. I think that's one of the big stories is how the play that they had with in the beginning parts of the first period and defensively as well. But more looking big picture here is that it's amazing what a slow start can really get you in a game. And they did not have a good start. You know, Winnipeg scored within the first 2 minutes. And it's funny, I literally was just turning the game on, and all of a sudden, like I had just seen Kyle Connor celebrating that goal. I was like, what happened? And it was just the Jets had the jump early, and they were probably energized by their home crowd. But you just can't go down that way, especially how you've been scoring in a bunch of different ways at home. And, you know, you're going to be entering a fierce environment. But Nick, I was just, it was just such a weird circumstance. I feel like now to be being outplayed so early.
That play that Connor scored was ridiculous. There's no excuse for letting that play happen. I know the Jet behind the goal thought he drew a penalty, didn't end up doing. He was complaining about it, and then all of a sudden kicks it over, and then they kick it over to Connor right in the slot, who's wide open again. And the Blues have had a knack in this series, especially when they're at Winnipeg, for letting someone that's literally right in front of Bennington getting wide open, and he has the pick of the litter and where he wants to put the puck. So those plays are just brutal. And if the Blues were to force Game 7, they just can't let that happen. Like, I don't really know what the problem is. That one seemed a little bit more fluky than the ones that happened prior, but it's just inexcusable. You can't, I mean, you had a chance. You was 3-on-1, honestly, behind the net in favor of the Blues. To not get the puck is completely inexcusable. Yeah. So that first goal was a huge bummer. Obviously, that didn't tell the whole story because the Blues evened it up very quickly after that. So things looked a little bit brighter. But that goal is just so avoidable, and they have to do a better job of that.
I agree. And I think the issues were pretty apparent, especially in the first and second period. Blues just did not have the energy, I think, in those first two periods. I think they started to come alive a little bit in the third as they were pushing to get at least one back from their 4-2 lead going into or 4-2 deficit going into the third period. But it just wasn't enough. You're right. And I don't know if it was just the defense just not playing the way that they really have been, but give them credit though. Like they had those, they let up more high danger chances. I think odd man rushes in that game. And I think that was the defining factor, I would say. But still, when it wasn't those high danger chances, there were a lot of them, but they were still forcing them from the outside, which was still a good sign because they definitely scored some. They scored some goals. Jets did from the point. They got traffic in front of Bennington. That one from DeMello as their second goal. I'm sorry, from that was their third goal, and just not really able to generate enough traffic in front to block that shot. I will say though, their blocks, they still out blocked the Jets 18-14 in the game. But at some point, you can only block as many shots as you can until you're going to let up these high danger chances, which they ended up doing a lot in the first and second period. So where does that stem from with the game?
Yeah, I mean, I think it stems from a lack of jump, what I was saying prior. I know Jamie Rivers was talking about it on the broadcast, but they let up way too much space when the Jets were reversing in the blue zone, and they allowed shots to get through. I know they had a few blocks, but in the second period especially, and the first period when the Jets scored those goals, like it could be strategy. You never know what Montgomery is really wanting the Blues to do in order to give Bennington the best shot at saving a puck that's fired in from the blue line. But there were Jets alone in front of Bennington, and it was very, very easy to see. And if that's going to be their strategy, then they have to make sure that they're pressing up on these D-men. They're going to fire shots from outside. And if there's going to be a rebound, they have to filter back and make sure that this guy that's alone in front of Bennington is not going to wreak havoc, which they didn't do a good enough job. And I think Suter and Letty were extremely guilty last night of all of the above, honestly, when it comes to defensive mistakes. I would hate to say that they're the only ones that made bad plays at the end of the day, but just not a good enough effort from the D-men and trying to keep things clean in front of Bennington. So that's what it boils down to, I think.
Yeah, that third pairing was really exposed in that game, unfortunately, and it really hadn't been a problem in the last couple games with Tyler Tucker being in the lineup. But then you put Suter back in, and you were predicting it. You said that there would be that lack of offensiveness from Ryan Suter, although he did hit the crossbar in the game, so he was close to scoring. But I just think they really exposed the weaknesses within that third pairing, and I don't think Nick Leddy had a good game at all. I think you said that, but it was pretty evident, unfortunately. And the top pairing can really only do so much and be on the ice for as long as they can be. And I thought Parayko was the best defenseman that they had that night when it comes to offensiveness, because when you look at the way he played, he was involved in the play in the offensive zone. It seemed like every single time, but he just is not good enough in terms of speed and with trying to keep the puck to really, I think, give the Blues good offensive chances. That's just not his game. And, he's really good defenseman, but I think he's a good two-way, but he's not going to be your offensive guy that you would really hope for. So I think that was also a big factor. But how would you really assess that Parayko's play in the game? I thought he had a pretty good game.
He had some really, really good chances in that first period. It was notable that they were, I think, sagging off of Parayko a little bit when the puck would go to him. I don't know if it was defensive lapses or whatever you can chalk it up to, but he was all alone, not far away from Hellebuck a few times, wasn't able to put it away, but he had some looks for sure. I don't think Parayko Fowler line was to blame for last night, but they scored 5 goals. I know the one was empty net, but there's plenty of blame to go around. I don't think anyone in particular from the Blues had a very good night.
Yeah.
And
Nathan Walker
played. Yeah, he had a great game.
Yeah.
And you have to love a guy like that literally puts his heart on the line every shift. It seems like, same with Torp, and But unfortunately, just not enough whatsoever when your fourth line are the guys that are creating the most offense. Not to say that was entirely the case throughout the night, but it sure seemed that way when we looked at the box score.
Yeah, I agree. I think also what it came down to it too was the defensive exit and gaining entry into the ozone, but also all the neutral zone play that happens in between. The Jets really clogged the neutral zone really well, I thought. And again, they're the Winnipeg Jets, are the President's Trophy winners. So they're going to be pretty solid when it comes to those aspects of the game. But they didn't really show it when the Blues were at home at all. And they really kind of breezed through them a lot of the time. And the Blues, you could see, were really trying to just grind it out in the game. They couldn't really enter the zone. They were dumping a lot of pucks in, but when they were cleanly entering and they had some possession, you saw the potential for danger with the Blues. But it just didn't happen that much last night. And I think that's the huge key of the game. I think is that the clogging of the neutral zone and not being able to cleanly exit and enter into your own into the Winnipeg zone probably was the defining factor of the game, I'd say.
Yeah, I think Montgomery said it well in the post-game presser where the Jets had their best game of the series and the Blues simply had their worst. I don't really think there's any way around that one.
Yeah.
They fumbled pucks left and right. They could not exit their own zone very easily whatsoever. And they maintained, I would say, next to zero ozone time. It was often very one and done if they got a shot on goal. And they had 9 shots on goal through 2 periods. And they found themselves down 4-2. So when you're trying to dig through that hole away on the road in Winnipeg, which is a very hostile environment, you're probably not going to like your odds there. And it proved to be true. They can't find themselves in that situation. Honestly, whether you're at home or on the road, but especially on the road. So they need to do a much better job. And almost every facet of the game that I can think of, they did worse than Winnipeg by a wide margin.
Yeah, I agree. They had more hits too in the game as well. That was the Blues' bread and butter the last couple games. Couldn't seem to really equal their physicality. I think that's a great segue. 44-40, still close, but I'd say that they were pretty physical as well, the Jets. But nice segue into the controversy of the night, and that was the Braden Shen hit on Mark Scheifele. And there was a lot, like, I wasn't really sure on what was going on in that. I was confused on why it was the double minor, and it made sense in my opinion. And we'll show it real quick just to give you guys a perspective of what we're looking at. Everybody kind of knows it. If you're probably tuning into this to see what we're talking about. So watch the replay. So right here. No, it's this one after. So the replay, watch Scheifele has no idea, head way down, and Shen barrels into him. And I want to get your unsolicited thoughts. I posted it today on our Twitter. I'm not sure how it really went over. Maybe I didn't even look at our account after I posted that to see if we got any controversy from that. But I'm curious to hear your thoughts before I say mine.
Yeah, it's very split. Obviously, I've gone into the depths of Jets Twitter, Blues Twitter to really figure out where each side really lands on it. And of course, Jets fans, especially since Scheifele is not even traveling to St. Louis for tomorrow's game, they're going to be very up in arms about the hit. And a couple things. Scheifele had the puck prior and then gets rid of it. Shen comes in like a thief in the night and absolutely destroys him. Yeah. Shen, no matter kind of which way you splice it on the replay, he does leave his feet. So he does have a launch a bit right before. And with that launch, it doesn't mean that it's going to be a major necessarily, but he did hit him very hard, and it was a little bit late. So with those two in mind, you're automatically assuming that it's going to be a minor at least. And from them, though, it is up to the referee to determine intent. And and that's such a subjective thing because no one knows what's going through players' heads when it's all said and done, when they're going to lay a big hit on someone. They have to determine the intent to injure, how many steps he took prior to maybe a charging call, even though charging wasn't even the call. So once they didn't call charging, it does make it a little bit different because they called interference. So I don't know. It was a really bang type of play. You don't know exactly how Shen was trending right before the hit. And honestly, like, I'm trying to put bias aside, but I don't think that Shen deserved to get a major, but I would not have been surprised at all if he did get a major because Matthew Tkachuk's hit on Jake Gensel was very, very, very similar. Gensel passed the puck. But it was different circumstances because Florida was going to lose that game regardless. And Tkachuk hit Gensel extremely hard. Didn't launch, though. So I guess a little bit different. And he got a 5-minute major. So he didn't get suspended, nothing like that. Everyone is trying to compare it to the Hagel hit on Barkov. And the problem with that comparison is that Barkov never had the puck. So once Barkov didn't have the puck, he is a completely defenseless player. There's no reason to hit someone that never had the puck and didn't have a plan to possess it because the puck was getting cycled around. So that's not something I think that should have warranted any type of suspension or fine like Hagel got because of the hit on Barkov. So it's a tricky one, though. Like, regardless, I'd love to get your thoughts, but I think it was probably the right call. But I understand why people would say he launched, there was intent, and he should have gotten a major. But I don't think a suspension would have ever been warranted in that situation.
No, suspension definitely not warranted. And I understood the call when I got some clarity on it. I think that there has to be a penalty called and with that play, because when you look at the hit again, and I think that it was definitely high. It was definitely in towards the head area. Not to say that he was hitting the head, but it was a high hit. And also he kind of left his skates as well with that. And so I think with that, it probably warrants a roughing call because the charging call takes into account how many strides the skater takes on the way to the hit. And when you look at Shen, he kind of glides over to Scheifele. He doesn't actually fully skate into him. So charging is not the right call there. And really the only call you could have made there is roughing with how high the hit was. So I think it warrants the penalty. Now, I understood Montgomery's point that Mark Scheifele was not injured on that play. So I don't think he necessarily was disagreeing with the call on the ice, but it was rather he was disagreeing probably with maybe what the league would assess him with the suspension. It was like, let's take into account here, the hit didn't injure him. And we should talk about it. Maybe it did. I don't know. Arneal said it didn't. But there's a lot of Blues fans on him right now, which is funny. But he said the Foxa hit actually injured him. And I don't know. Who knows? But I think it's important to know that for the league purposes too, is that this can't warrant a suspension if it didn't injure him like that. Was it malice? I don't think so. But I don't know. I think you got to talk about the outcome as well of the play. And he got right back up.
Yeah. That's what I was saying. It's so up to a discretion of a referee to grade whether Shen had an intent to injure, which how could you ever really assume unless it's egregious as can be, which I don't think this hit was. to actually injure Scheifele. Also, if you're Scheifele, keep your head up, man. Like, I don't really understand what you're doing. I would say the same thing about Jordan Kyrou, who got absolutely decked by Stanley. Like, keep your head up. Like, it doesn't matter if you passed the puck 5 seconds ago. You got to make sure that you're skating and you understand exactly who's around you. So that's something that needs to be noted. But with Schenn, like, charging can be called if there is a launch. That usually what it boils down to. Now, whether that's deemed a major or a minor is a different story. So the call was a weird one because interference, he had just had the puck. So I don't really understand that one. And then the roughing one was a mix up with Tanev. So I don't know. Like, I think that's very up for discussion. However, who's the Jets coach again?
Scott Arniel.
Yeah, Arniel. What he said is really not correct. I know he's probably defending his guys and wanting to make sure that everything gets assessed correctly. But to say that the dirtiest plays favor the Blues is probably not true. That's the only one that comes to mind when it comes to potentially a dirty hit. And I say potentially with some air quotes. There's no reason to suggest that it was dirty unless the referees expressed that they had that Schenn had intent, which was ruled null and void, that he did not. So the presser was interesting, and Montgomery can't necessarily just say like, oh no, it was the Foxa hit. You can intuitively think that it was the Foxa hit because Scheifele stayed in the game for another 6 minutes and then got wrecked by Foxa, which again, keep your head up, buddy. Like, what are we doing here? He gets lit up by Foxa a few minutes later. So he's not really trying to protect himself, it seems like, enough, which every great player has to make sure they're protecting themselves. So I don't know. There's a lot of gray area here, and I'm glad that they did not end up coming down on Schenn because I don't think it was deserved at the end of the day.
Yeah, and it would have been a huge, huge fallout, I think, from that. Like, the NHL's got to be really careful if they would do something like that. And I think the referees got to be careful too. It's like, if you really want to set that precedent of assessing him a major for that play, it's all discretion, but then that, I think, sets a precedent for the rest of the league too, and the rest of the series, to be like, well, you can't be having these big hits on people, and whether it's, gray area or not, I think it would definitely curtail potential big hitting and more physicality in the game. So it is an interesting topic, and I struggle with it still. But I wanted to get some third party feedback on it, and one of really experienced hockey guy, I sent it to him, and he's like, yeah, it's a penalty, but it's not a suspension. And because he just talked about the hit being up high, and it makes sense. So interesting story there. I think it may be a little bit of, I said this hopefully to get some controversy on it, but so maybe it's a little poetic justice for number one, the Kyrou hit, although it didn't injure him, and maybe the Tucker hit, although it wasn't really as egregious. So now we lose Tucker and they lose Scheifele. Pretty easy trade-off there.
That's apples to apples, man.
Apples to apples. Oh my gosh. And then also, so moving on from this, I'm sure there's much more to for that in Game 6. I think that's not the end of that discussion. I'm sure there'll be some bodies flying. I think Schenn's got to be careful in Game 6. Really careful. He's going to have a target on his back, unfortunately. But he's the guy, I think, that out of all the Blues players, you probably want him to have the target, so that instead of Kyrou or Thomas or something like that, because he just has not been contributing offensively that much, and that's a story within itself. But I think moving on in terms of the goaltending, I think wanted to touch that because that was a big topic in our last episode. Hellebuck versus Binnington. Hellebuck won the battle. I think didn't really have the shots that the Blues normally would get on the board, but I think Hellebuck looked strong. The Snuggerud goal was atrocious, like really bad, probably the worst goal he's let up in the series. And but he didn't really have any other mistakes besides that. I thought he played the puck pretty well. He was distributing better. So he definitely had an improvement. And I think it was a good sign for him to do that in front of his home crowd, because if that would have turned out any worse, then I think it would have resulted in some big problems in Winnipeg.
I think the Blues let him off the hook.
Yeah.
I mean, they didn't generate enough shots on goal. They did not create enough traffic in front of him to make his life a little bit more miserable. He's leaky. There's no doubt about it throughout the series. We saw the Snuggerud goal, and the Blues didn't get even close to enough looks whatsoever, and didn't do enough to put bodies in front. So they bailed him out, as far as I'm concerned. He made that one save on Sundqvist, which was a really good save. It was extremely lucky, and Sundqvist couldn't have put it in a worse position, honestly. He hit the whole left side of the goal and goes right at Hellebuck's stick. So, that happens. And Neighbors has done that, I think, twice in this series, where you're bailing goalies out and letting them make decent saves. But I don't think Hellebuck played that well of a game, or that good of a game. I think the Blues made him seem like he played better, and hopefully they can ruin the confidence yet again on Friday night tomorrow.
I sure hope so. But yeah, I think that paddle save that he made did not get enough attention, and that was Neighbors, and he should have scored that goal. But it was a great save.
It was Sundqvist.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I was thinking of the Neighbors one where he hit it off the pad. That one, off up this, like, I forget where. I think it was where he lifted his pad and he saved it. But yeah, I agree with you though. I think there was some. The Blues definitely made him look a lot better than he actually was, because I think if you looked at the game and had a lot more shots on goal, I think it maybe be a different game, because he didn't really get tested that much. And
he's still, like, if we're being honest here, we only had 19 shots on goal and we scored 3 goals.
Yeah.
So it's not as if Hellebuck is standing on his head making great saves. He made that one good save, of course, but like, let's be honest here. Like, that's a horrible percentage when we're looking at it after the game.
Yeah.
And the Blues generated next to nothing in terms of shots on goal to really test him. So, I don't want to let him off the hook. Hellebuck still is a serious question mark, and I'm excited about it going into tomorrow.
100%. And then turning to Jordan Binnington, I think the broadcast said it well on ESPN was he didn't really play that bad of a game. I think he really kept the Blues in it for a while, but just didn't really get the support at the end of the day. Would you have liked at least one of those back? Maybe, but they're not. There's really no goals that he let up. You say, oh, he should have had that 100%. I didn't really see a goal that happened with the Jets that could have really transpired like that. Like, he was close on a couple. That one, the 2-on-1 to the 1-2 to make it 4-2, I think. He almost had that sliding over. He just got a piece of it. So maybe you would want that one, but you'd still lose the game without that goal. So I don't know. Would you agree with the Binnington assessment?
Yeah, I thought he played fine, and I thought about this today. Jordan has played fine. I don't think, with the exception of Game 4, I don't think Binnington has been anything like a 2019 Binnington, where he's been standing on his head making save after save. Nothing has been asked of him, I think, to that extent. I don't think a lot of those goals are his fault. Like, I'm not going to stand here and say that Binnington should have made a bunch of saves when, honestly, I don't think he had a shot. But I can't just say that Bennington's been awesome this series. Like, I don't think he has. I think he's still at my grade of a B. Like, he's still hovering above, like, right above average, which can still, win you a series. But when you have such a vulnerable goaltender in Hellebuck right now, like, your offense needs to exploit that. And it's not on Binnington necessarily. It's on the Blues offense and D-men that are getting up in the play to make Hellebuck pay for being a poor goalie at this point in the playoffs. So not on Binnington, but I would still say he's not playing spectacularly. I would be very hesitant to say that.
Interesting assessment. I don't know. He definitely is not this wild, just clutch goalie right now, but I'm having a hard time just really thinking about a lot of these goals that he has a lot of shots on to even get a really great save. But yeah, if you look probably at his expected goals, it's probably at a similar percentage to what it was last time. I didn't check it this time. I assume it's pretty similar because they were all pretty high danger chances that he let up. So, but yeah, would love to see a few big saves from him. I don't think we've really seen that a lot in the series, though. I think you're right. It's a proper way to say it. So, heading into game 6, wanted to keep it a little short today. So, how do we need to adjust to this Jets team that really brought it on to the Blues, and what needs to go differently? Is it the goaltending that does Hellebuck need to have that horrible game again, or can it be sustained in a different way and just getting some more shots and goals on the board?
I think it's very simple. You have to channel the energy that you had in games 3 and 4. Clearly, last night's performance would not cut it, even if you're at home. So they need to be way more effective on their forecheck. The D-men have to be way more clean when it comes to exiting the zone, and the wingers and the centers need to be more active in trying to exit the zone. But it was clearly an issue yesterday, and they were not able to figure out in real time, it seemed like. So everything that they did in games 3 and 4, they pretty much didn't do last night, at least as effectively.
Yeah.
They need to come back to where their game was at prior, especially in game 3. That was the best game I've seen the Blues play in a long time, and they need to be more effective. And when we're talking about some players need to be more effective, Buchnevich has been silent outside of game 3.
It's true.
So he needs to be way more active. I thought Rob didn't play a great game either. I thought he had some crazy turnovers in their own zone, just trying to make a play. And it's like, that's what we've said all along, though, that Robert Thomas is going to make plays or try to make plays, and he will turn the puck over. But they need to get back to their game, and their forecheck needs to be so much better, and their exits out of their own zone need to be so much better as well.
Also, Jordan Kyrou. Jordan Kyrou needs to wake up. That's also what I would say in terms of the offense. And that's your 3 best forwards right there that need to wake up when it comes to, like, Thomas, probably his worst game of the series. But, yeah, Buchnevich has been silent, and Kyrou, ever since that hit, has really just not been the guy. And I don't know if it's a lack of confidence, but it's just he's not getting the goals on the board. And you need to call upon your best goal scorer in the season to be able to contribute your goals in this 7 games, or in this, best of 7 series. It needs to happen, and not the time to go silent, especially at home in an elimination game, to where you can send it right back to Winnipeg and you just need to steal one on the road. And that's all they need to do. And it starts one game at a time for sure, and got to get it at home. And I just wanted to show this before we hop off here, but just to remind the audience, John Gruden will be in attendance for the St. Louis Blues at Enterprise Center for Game 6. So hopefully we can get some momentum from him even being there, because all of a sudden they do that video and they come out with 12 goals in the home stand there. So need that a lot.
Yeah, I was going to say too, and I tweeted about it last night, but if they were to win tomorrow night, being on the road or at home doesn't matter. It literally just doesn't. It's game 7. It is win or go home, and the Blues have not faced that yet in Winnipeg. And I don't think it should be nearly as big of a problem as it has been the previous 3, because they've never been in a situation where they were going to go home if they lost in Winnipeg. Yeah. So This is a very different situation. The Blues obviously need to win tomorrow, and there's a big if on that. If they play like they did last night, they won't win. But if they channel any of the energy they had in games 3 and 4, they'll be fine. So Mark Scheifele's out, didn't travel. So they have the odds in their favor right now. And I think they should be just fine and force a game 7 on Sunday, where I really do like their chances. Like, not even remotely comparable to what they were last night. It's a different ball game. It's game 7, and people are going to be going no matter what the crowd is, no matter how bad the energy is, the Blues are going to be firing, no matter unlike any of the other games that have happened in Winnipeg thus far.
Yep. Jets gain Gabe Vilardi in game 5, and they lose Mark Scheifele in game 6. And the trade-off there is in our favor, for sure. Gabe Vilardi's a top 6 forward for them, but Mark Scheifele's a hell of a lot better. And he's going to be a huge, huge one for the Blues to not have to deal with throughout that game tomorrow. So big story there. Lot we covered here in a matter of a short time, but we appreciate you guys for tuning into the live stream, and we just wanted to get something out there, connect with you guys, and hopefully bring one home tomorrow at home. It's big. It's huge. Again, every single day we say that's the biggest game of the Blues season, and again, we'll say it again because the stakes get higher and higher as you get more into the playoffs, and it's really fun. You love it as a fan, but it's when the heart starts beating a little faster. But we enjoy it, and hopefully they can bring one home tomorrow night against the Winnipeg Jets, and we will see what happens. And we don't know what's going to happen after that. If they lose, I don't know what we're going to do with the podcast. We'll update you guys as we go along. But I know for sure if they win, then we'll bring you something at some point on Saturday. So, or whenever, we'll see. But thanks for guys tuning in. Have a great day tomorrow. Good rest of the night. And we'll see you hopefully next time in game 7. Pray. That's all we can do. See you guys.
See you guys.